and welcome to Feedback for the week of October 18th, 2011. I'm Adam SESSLER, and I'm sitting in the wrong place. No, it's not the wrong place anymore. It's the right place. I am now going to be sitting over here when I decide to sit over here, but it's now going to be hosted by the one and only Blair Herter.
Thank you.
A man of youth, intelligence,
vigor,
and linguistic dexterity.
No, I'm going to say that this show is going to be far different as far as literary references, big words, intelligence. But I think what I'll probably bring to the table is at some point we'll start using a lot more props.
That's probably a good idea.
It'll be the Carrot Top of video game internet shows.
Is it like a pointer, or are you just going to use it to illustrate good moments in video games?
We haven't budgeted things out yet. I don't know what it's going to be.
There's a budget? Oh, you come with a budget?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. That's one of the reasons we did it. For everybody at home,
I had to sell my pants to be able to get that chair. That doesn't really work.
You never had pants.
No, I never had pants.
Yeah. For everybody at home, this is not as awkward as you think it would be, considering. I just want to say thank you, obviously, for giving me this opportunity. Adam SESSLER has chosen to use the last 3 years of his life to pursue social interests and not sit here and do this show. But no, obviously it's a great honor, and I hope to do this chair justice like you have, sir.
Well, I'll let you know all through the episode.
Yeah, please do, and come back for more and judge all the time. Maybe you can join the super creepy old guy
out in the back window. Yeah. I like that.
Maybe that was the ghost of Adam Future.
You know what? Yeah, I bet you like that. Or like in one of those Doctor Who episodes where like the Doctor Who sees another Doctor Who that he's gonna when he stops being Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So maybe there's just a phone booth out there, and I'll have a scarf.
Yeah.
Soon.
And then we'll have a pretty lady that follows us around inexplicably. Every doctor has a hot chick.
Damn
for no
it.
reason.
All right, fine.
That said, everybody, and welcoming to the show for the very first time, Mr. Johnson. I know we usually go this way, but I have something special for you, so I'm going to save you for last.
All right.
The lovely Miss Jessica Chobot is here as well. I wanted to bring something new to the table, like I said, props, and I'd like to buy your loyalty. I know I'll never be as good as Adam, but I want you to at least care about me.
You could say that again, huh, Adam? Right? Yeah.
It's fun sitting here with you. That's good.
You guys done?
Please continue.
So, Jessica, I know how much you love Japan life. Rice patties, not easy to find here in the States. So, really thin rice cakes for you?
You can find rice patties at Famima. And
Wait, the rice patty like with the water buffalo and the place where they grow the rice?
I think they mean rice cakes.
No, like rice cakes.
Oh, rice cakes after the rice has been grown.
What is it? Not Onimushu. That's not what
Onimusha has a... Wow, that franchise dropped off.
Yeah, really, it really did. That's another conversation for another time. But well, whatever whatever those. First of all, I think they're represented wrong in Japan life. It's like you can upgrade by having.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Onigiri.
Yeah.
Anyway, these aren't it, and this does not allow me to build houses or to add vegetation around my place. So this doesn't. No, thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
But if you were in college and poor, you could both eat and lose the freshman 15 because it has no caloric value.
I never had freshman 15 in college.
Fine. Speaking of people that have had freshman 15 in college, just kidding. Me too, Steve. Me too. Steven Johnson is here as well.
Hi, everybody.
Steven, I know that you desperately wanted to have a feedback theme song on this show.
Yes,
as Adam said, along with this chair and a new butt in the chair comes a budget, and with that budget comes the ability to actually have a feedback theme song on this show.
My dreams come true, and I've been told...
You're way too winning him over with this.
I know. He is like,
now that Adam's gone, you can have what you want, Johnson.
Yeah, career value. Just so you know, Adam is the one that has been holding you back your entire life.
Right, yeah, I know. I realize it.
I don't like singing or music.
I love you guys fighting for my loyalty. That's terrific. Keep that up. That'd be great. But I was told one time only so I made it something epic for Epictober. With our incredible production crew of Frank Meyer and Neil Goodman, was able to do the theme song justice at last. So, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the feedback theme song.
Oh.
I mean, it was like Dee Snider and Black Francis had a child.
I mean,
It was really, really strange.
That's what I was going for.
well done.
My respect level, not that it wasn't there already, but it now is like through the roof.
That's awesome. I
That
thought
was awesome.
I was afraid that the opposite reaction would happen.
Where did you learn to
I
crawl like that?
right.
Listen, when you have a natural animalistic sexuality the way a Steve Johnson does, you refer to yourself in the third person and you know how to crawl.
Well,
That's what I'm
well.
talking about, Herder.
I mean,
Right?
you guys need to share a microphone.
We're going to share more than that.
I
Oh,
would
yeah.
imagine-
Am I right? Yeah. Up top. There we
Wow.
go. I apologize.
Wow.
I'm sorry to everybody.
Jessica, let me ask you. You know, I would imagine that it had to feel the same way that maybe we felt when we saw Tawny Katayan for the first time crawling across a car. Was that what you felt like just now when you saw Mr. Johnson frolicking about in that velvet bedroom of
Personally,
sex
the butt shake dance was
Thank
one
you.
that really kind of captured my heart, and then also a couple of the hair flips. I thought that was really well done, and a look that you should explore on a day-to-day thing.
I agree.
Yeah, that
I'm
looked-
going to start doing that.
You could pull that off.
It's time for you to commit to growing your hair longer.
I'm going
I
to.
believe. Also, everything you own should be animal print from here on out.
I think you should teach preschool. I just think that you really would know how to get the audience of a bunch of 3-year-olds.
Sure.
Yeah.
We can go shopping. We'll go to Wet and Wild, get you some makeup.
I don't know what Wet and Wild is, but
It sounds super fun.
all right.
I imagine it's,
I like both of those things individually. Together, it must
That
be a
sounds-
blast.
Yep. Okay.
I don't know how to transition into what we're supposed to be doing here today, so let's just talk video
well,
games.
one of the ways you can do that is
Yes,
you come up
yes,
with
please.
a clever, segue
Okay.
or phrase.
You know, I remember the first time I got Wet and Wild, it was at a video game arcade.
Wow, that was bad.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it comes with practice. It comes with practice.
See, you would have thrown in an obscure literary reference that nobody would get, but it would have been awesome, and I would... Can you just give me one? Help me transition with something by Dickens.
Well,
I remember when I played my
Speaking-
first video game, it made me felt like I wanted to put my...
No, you in. No, Dickens was a writer. Dickens.
Well, I can see how the show's
think
going to
at long
change.
last, that video came with great expectations. So, in a Dickensian vein, let's look at another epic game that's out there with our first news story.
Well done, Adam Sessler. Everybody.
That was like Bikram yoga of trying to pull
nice.
away from
It
one
was.
to the other.
Well, it was already sweaty in here because of Steven Johnson.
Thank you all.
Let's talk about Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. Miss Chobot, you are an unabashed fan of this game. I think we can all argue that it is definitely one of the greatest franchises, shaping up to be the greatest trilogy of this console generation. Multiplayer is not something that people... No, we're necessarily clamoring for in this series. It's such a great single-player campaign. Why don't we run down exactly what they brought to the table with multiplayer, and then I'd really like to go around the table and discuss whether or not they actually needed to have multiplayer in this game.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I am one of those really hardcore Mass Effect fans. When I found out about the 3 multiplayer, I was quite, at first, disappointed because I'm not a big multiplayer fan. However, the more I think about it, the more I think I like it.
Okay.
And here's why. Mostly because you have the choice of, in multiplayer, you get war assets, essentially, which then allow you to... They're kind of like a monetary system, so that you can go and buy and do upgrades, buy different weapons, unlock some other stuff. And so...
In the single-player campaign.
In the single-player campaign.
Okay.
And what's really cool about that, though, is if you're not into multiplayer... You don't have to choose to have it reflect in your single-player campaign, but if you do, you can. And I think that that's a really interesting take on it, because coming from a person that doesn't play a lot of multiplayer, that might be the enticement. On top of the fact that it's co-op, it's not versus. And so that kind of aggression that you would normally get in a versus campaign is not there. So people that are shy of that kind of a thing, this is a more friendly playground.
You get to be racist with your friends and not at your friends.
Yes.
You can come up with words for Krogans. They're really derisive.
Right.
Dirty Krogies.
It's got 11 waves that you have to go through. It also has...
So it's like a horde mode, a beast mode.
Beast mode. It also has some side missions that you can get involved with, which I think is really, really smart to do because, again, if you're not into that kind of a campaign, to have side missions, it's a little bit more of that bringing you back into the fray, into the story element that some people prefer.
Okay.
Including myself. So that to me is what's going to keep me interested versus just constantly going up against these enemies. Level cap is 20.
Mm-hmm.
You can, I'm positive, eventually they're going to announce that you can play as every single race.
Mm-hmm.
Right now,
in true video game fashion, let's just dole it out and surprise them with the obvious.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, come on, guys. But, right now they've announced Drell and Krogan, which I think actually Drell's pretty cool because he was only introduced in 2.
Yeah.
And that Thane, and that was pretty...
And they didn't get into a lot of specifics about where this guy comes from. I mean, it's just because he was adopted, wasn't he? That's how he became an assassin. And
I don't know if he was adopted or not.
so
I just knew that he
aquatic.
was an assassin and that he's got some sort of degenerate disease.
Yeah.
The ghost of Adam
know
Future
this?
is
I
here.
had no idea.
yeah, that's me.
Yeah, no, that's the guy.
Yeah, that's Adam Sessler.
Can we bring him in
I
sometime?
didn't
We
even
should.
know.
And I interview him.
Yeah.
So where do I go wrong, sir? It was leaving feedback, wasn't it? Yes, it was.
I do like how you shop at thrift stores though. Like here in LA, most other places like, man, that tweed coat's kind of ridiculous. That cost Future Adam over $400.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, I think
And
he looks
then
like
he
a handsome
goes.
older man.
He might really be a ghost.
Yeah.
Like that. I'm not kidding around. That might actually be a ghost.
Yeah.
I thought it was a complete joke because the only thing I'd ever seen out of the window was that Yeti.
No.
But there he is.
There he is.
There he
And
is.
he only recently started appearing the nearer we get to Christmas. I think it all really fits in with our.
He's sitting down.
Wow.
He's gonna
Baby
watch the rest of the
Jesus?
show.
He is. Baby Jesus really lets himself go at some point.
Wow.
So we're talking about Mass Effect 3 multiplayer.
Just to pick it back up, I guess, is you can follow it also on Facebook, any of your iOS devices, things like that, when check in and see where your progress is at, which is really, really cool.
Right.
So I'm going to
Is
be
it that
doing
hard to figure out
Man.
your progress when you're playing it? That's the part.
Stay out of my
I
Facebook,
just-
man.
I see that's
Shit,
actually...
Mass Effect.
Here,
I only want to farm in Facebook,
That's what
not
I'm
fight
talking about.
alien races.
Man, like,
Wait a minute. Now, the
this is our first
Dragon
spat.
Age... This is nothing. Blair can tell you. Dragon Age Legacy is really, really awesome in the fact that, it was probably the first Facebook game that I ever wanted to play because the more that you played in it, the more you unlocked things, and then that would then allow you to have access to them in Dragon Age 2. And it was, it was obviously a gimmick, but I really, really dug it. And I'm really, really hoping, even though they haven't announced it yet, that that's similar to what you're going to have with Mass Effect
Well,
3.
it's both BioWare.
Yeah.
It's both EA, which, I mean, I think my take on this is I have all the confidence in the world in Casey Hudson. I mean, this man has made 2 games that I absolutely adore, and the third one looks to even sort of beat the experience of both of those. So, I was with you like, okay, fine, it's co-op. I just don't want to. I play my RPGs to be alone, feeling like I'm finally accomplishing something in life.
Right.
But it's the Facebook stuff. That starts to sound like EA, which is they're like, we're going to find this multifaceted way. And it's like, I actually really enjoy my time when I play games. And I enjoy that time when I'm not playing games. And when you start to just, maybe this is me getting old and not wanting to sit in that chair over there. But it's just, I understand what you're coming from, but if I feel that like somehow I'm going to have a minimal experience in the core game because I'm not on Facebook. There's some jackass pretending to be me on Facebook, but I'm curious because also Mass Effect. It appeals to an older demographic as well that may not be as well attuned to this stuff.
Well, it's
Well,
interesting. I mean, we have that the Facebook iOS story. All that we're actually going to talk about with Steve in the next story. What I am really interested in here is that I think that fans, once they first saw this, they're like, it's bullshit. They're just tacking on a multiplayer because they want to make more money. But it really does seem like the multiplayer experience serves the single player experience. In a lot of ways, it seems like to enhance it. And I know before we get in, the Facebook stuff is something different, but there is some incentive here to play multiplayer, to kind of so you can gain an advantage in the single player game.
You can choose to opt out of that. So if you don't want to gain that advantage and you strictly want to stick to your single player campaign, then you can. And the thing is that they're not tacking it on. They've said numerous times now that they've planned this since Mass Effect 1, and this is just the best. This section of that trilogy is just the best section to place this multiplayer in.
Right.
And I also agree.
They planned it for Mass Effect 1, like, no, let's do a tank instead. That's going to be a much better idea.
And I agree with
We
what
could
you're
drive around
where
planets
you're
that are
coming
empty.
from, as far as because I am not a fan of multiplayer at all. And when I first heard about this, I was like, oh, come on, guys. Like, really? Don't make me not like you. And the more that I think about it, though, is things with the iOS and the Facebook quick, if they do manage to implement kind of the unlockables in that you can bring over to Mass Effect 3, the thing that I think is really cool is I would much rather play, I guess, a Facebook/internet-y kind of game that helps me promote the game that I really care about on my console versus just Japan Life, I still love you. Touching and clicking a lot of coins and rice cakes. You know, I mean, that as much as I enjoy Japan Life, which I enjoy a ton, you know, there's nothing, it's very one-dimensional. And this, I think, adds a whole added dimension to the gaming experience at my home.
It does. I guess it's, when they say that there's currency and you can buy stuff in the game, it sounds like there's a lot more stuff in the game. Because, I mean, there is only a minimal assortment of weapons in Mass Effect 2. Maybe it's like, if you don't feel like mining, you could do the co-op instead.
I think there has to be a way to...
I'm going to sound like a huge hypocrite here, but if it's an either-or, you can do it in the single player or you can do it in the co-op, that tends to weaken both rather than enhance both.
I mean, I think that's the big question, Stephen, right? I mean,
I hope there's some way I could just not do it.
Yeah, and
like,
the bigger questions being, will the single-player game be affected by your choice? Will the single-player game maybe not be as robust? Maybe will there be things that aren't unlocked to you if you don't play the multiplayer game?
Guys, we're going to spend as much time and dedication developing this trilogy to not make it worthwhile for everybody, no matter what you choose.
I mean,
and they're good at making games.
I'm still going to go out on a limb. I love Casey. I love everyone at BioWare. I still think this is EA mandating this, and I think
agree,
they feel
100%.
obliged that they have to deliver to be able to keep that name that they have attached to it that well. I mean, I know they're saying they're. I imagine they sat around a table saying, "Should we do co-op for Mass Effect 1?" But I mean, to be fair, it still does not strike me as a game that ever struck me as lacking. I mean, it's a game that is so damn replayable. Hopefully, that's mitigating how many people are returning it to the store, because I want to go through and have a bad playthrough. I want to go through and have a bad playthrough.
It would be really interesting to if anybody would ever be honest about, like, well, how much of these decisions came from EA saying you have to do this, and how much were your decisions in the game? But nobody would ever do that.
Look, Galaxy at War mode will be locked under an online pass. I think that the entire decision was made by EA because you have to pay them money to get an online pass to play this game.
Origin thing, it's just
right. But would we feel differently about this? Would we go down the road? Would we feel differently about this if a Facebook and an iOS element wasn't attached to it? Would you feel differently about
the multiplayer?
No,
I wouldn't. The thing that's keeping me questioning it is about, as far as Facebook goes, is, I'm only guessing that they're going to have unlockables in Facebook similar to what they did in Dragon Age Legacy. If they don't have that, screw that. Then I'm totally uninterested.
Okay, Steven?
I think the two are not really that related. And I don't think the integration with Facebook and all that stuff is going to be a major part of the game if they're smart.
I think it'll just be updates. Yeah. I think it's, like you can link your Xbox Live account to your Facebook account, and it basically just tells you what achievement you just unlocked.
Because my aunt really cares that I'm level 20. Like, she loves that.
Well, she wants to know that she's a part of your life.
Yeah, that I'm progressing.
Sure.
You'd be surprised at how accurate that statement is. Like, I get calls from my mom. Oh, why don't we just don't know what's going on with you?
This is why I don't call you.
Exactly.
Because I'm unlocking things in my virtual world. What about you, Adam?
I mean, I don't think the Facebook iOS thing makes that big a difference. I mean, look, if I'm going to play Horde mode, I think actually playing, with some powers like biotics sounds pretty cool. But I guess I'm just thinking about having to do the review and having to get that session together through everybody at EA to be able to play with people. I just like sitting at home and just playing a game.
I agree with you.
It's just and not having to make time with my friends because I just can't make time with my friends.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. I mean, I definitely side with the people that I wanted this entire franchise to be my personal experience, and having to add other people to that experience is not necessarily something I'm interested in, but I do feel like there's enough of a market out there for this to work. If they start selling me Subway sandwiches in the Citadel, I'm going to be really pissed off. But, if the Normandy is suddenly using Shell gasoline to fly around the universe, I'm going to be kind of pissed about that. But
I mean, the way EA's been lately, I just wouldn't say that's too far in the future. I mean, they're acting a little bit desperate and a little bit crazy.
Let's just ask future you. Bring in future Adam. Yeah, we'll ask him what's going on. But speaking of that, let's talk about the fact that video games are moving into the mobile space in an aggressive manner. I know the biggest surprise last year, we covered DICE. You guys were there. Obviously, we were there for X-Play. Angry Birds won Game of the Year. That was I think that showed a lot of people, not only are these games popular amongst their peers.
Wait, did Angry Birds win Game of the Year?
Yeah, I believe. Or it won a lot of awards. No, you know what? I think it may have
won a really big game, but it wasn't Game of the Year.
It won something very large, but enough.
Mass Effect 2 won Game of the Year. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Well,
guess.
but it won like a bunch of really big awards, and people are like, "Holy, like this is crazy! These are our peers voting, and they're voting for this iOS game." And Steve, not only do they have a lot of large games and a lot of large franchises that have now committed to making mobile games, but Gabe Newell, who has to put his 2 cents into everything, also had some pretty harsh comments. And we should remember, this is the same man that at one point said his games would never be on the PS3, and then had the greatest apology in the history of all E3 apologies. So,
well, Gabe Newell knows games, definitely, and he knows
Absolutely.
the industry, and he had a lot to say, speculating as to the future of gaming on the Apple devices and the iOS, and basically said that he suspects that Apple will launch a living room product that redefines people's expectations really strongly, and the notion of a separate console platform will disappear. That's what he thinks Apple's going to do in the future.
Is this Apple TV, or am I misreading this? I mean, that's what I feel like he's talking about.
Apple TV is set up. Apple TV is set up now. I mean, they're in my house and on every television, and it has become an entertainment hub. If they offered gaming through that, I could see myself playing games through that. But I think we're talking about Apple TV right now. It's a content delivery device. It doesn't, you know what I mean? Like
And a vice.
It really is a vice too. But you're not putting things into that thing and playing
Right,
you know.
right.
So right now it just delivers. Your content is stored somewhere else, and it gives it to you through this wireless device.
But I think what Gabe is envisioning is something like iTunes, like what iTunes did for music.
So you're thinking like an on-live streaming device kind of a thing?
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say because he's speculating about the future, and he's speculating about the future of a company that is now the future is very uncertain for. And I don't want to call Gabe Newell wrong, but in this case, I would adopt a wait and see stance as to whether Apple could pull something like that off without Steve Jobs. Because the last time they didn't have Steve Jobs, almost immediately the company started making really stupid decisions.
Yeah,
Well,
and then he comes back and turns it around
Exactly.
in another 15
Immediately
years.
turns it around. Yeah, I mean...
But you've seen, I mean, I was in New York this past weekend, and I made this remark. The iPhone 4S obviously came out last week. There was a 3-hour wait at the Apple store in New York to buy one of these phones. The Verizon store 2 blocks away had no one in it. You could have bought an iPhone 4S 2 blocks away at the Verizon store for 20 minutes. I myself went to a Verizon store. In a half hour, I transferred phones over. Everything was great. My point being, Apple fans will buy anything
fans.
and will wait.
I think they're dwindling a little bit because it's not like that level of deep fandom for Apple. You're now sharing it with just about everybody else in the world.
Well,
so
I mean,
it's not like back in 2000 it was like I'm fighting against Bill Gates by
Right.
being a loyal corporate supporter without getting any remuneration for my activities.
Well, now you're hearing the argument on the other side. Like what you're saying is that people that used to be loyal to Apple are now frustrated with Apple because they lock everything. You can't transport
Right.
on multiple devices.
Well,
It's
Android-
like,
look,
I paid
Android
for it,
has-
Why can't I use it?
Android has made a lot of people very spoiled, but the thing is most of us don't have the ability to design our own apps. And what the problems that people are running into with Android, the marketplace, the Apple, they control everything that goes into their phone. But what that helps avoid is people that download third-party apps on Android phones, it F's their phone up.
Yeah.
And then so Apple controls it to an extent for certain reasons, but look,
But
people are.
Gabe Newell sees that differently, and he sees that as a bad thing.
I agree.
Because he's saying that Apple is controlling their market completely and taking a percentage of everything, which makes it a closed system, which closes off innovation and stuff like that. And
which is why I just don't see how like games like your EA games and your Activision games are ever going to sort of like merge with that.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, if you want to get your as I say, I'm not masturbating games like Angry Birds or something else like that. Fine, but then also they're. Well, no,
It's something else to do in the toilet besides masturbating.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like when you're out in
guys
public and you're
masturbate
waiting
on
at the
the
doctor,
toilet?
you can't masturbate, so you play
we
Angry
masturbate
Birds.
every
Yeah, right? I'm masturbating right now without my hands. We can do this. We're really good at it.
See, now, Blair, I never said I was doing that on the show. No, but it's, I mean, and obviously a lot of people making apps, they're small, they kind of have to get into bed with Apple. But when you're looking at the major players in the video game space, EA and Microsoft were loggerheads on the original Xbox about whether or not to go on Xbox Live.
Sure.
I just don't see how Apple's behavior, even though they pulled it off with the music industry, but pretty much the music industry was already like, They were
They
such
needed
bad
help,
shape,
right. And there
it's
was no
Apple
standard
said, you will
set.
be my bitch. And they're like, yes, we will.
Hey, I mean,
So-
there was no standard set when the music industry, when they got into bed with them. Steve Jobs just said, listen, I'm going to sell every song on the planet for 99 cents. And you're going to get a percentage of that. Nobody's buying your music right now. They're downloading it illegally. So we will charge them 99 cents. We'll take a percentage, whatever. But now we have these, obviously, video game companies know the relationship the music industry now has with Apple, and things will be a little different. But Gabe, he's been right about a lot of things. And obviously, Steam is a great example of that sort of thing done right. So if anybody's going to talk about it, he's a guy that can talk about it. I just wonder, like you said, it's weird because a lot of people, they think, Apple, they're still very fanatical about Apple, but they recognize the fact that it's a lot of their stuff is overpriced hardware and you can't do a lot of stuff with it. But what we're seeing here is that the 600,000 pre-orders were the most ever sold for an iPhone.
Right.
Yeah. They sold over a
that brings us
million.
back-
Explains why do people wait in line at the
Exactly.
Apple Store? You dumb.
But that
Oh,
brings us back to
God.
the iPhone itself as a gaming platform, and the fact that as the processors in the phones and iPads get more and more powerful, they become more able to play hardcore games, and a lot of more core sort of games are coming out for the iOS devices. Like the new Scribblenauts game is out on
Well,
iOS
I wouldn't call that. I
devices.
mean,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
That's a game that makes sense.
GTA 3.
Okay, that makes no
Come on,
sense.
GTA 3.
Okay, I'm just going to be frank. That sounds like one of the
No,
most
be Adam, I'm too
miserable-
confused. I can't.
That sounds like one of the most miserable gaming experiences I can have.
Using the
GTA
accelerometer to turn your little tiny car
was
around.
a phenomenal game when it came out. It is impossible to play now. Do you remember that mission where you couldn't scratch up the car too much?
Oh my
You
God,
had to
that was
get
the
it back?
worst.
I don't remember
How are
any
you
of the
going to
missions
do
in
that
GTA
on
3.
Terrible
iOS?
memory. Oh my
Okay,
God.
I mean, it's just no one's going to spend the time because once again, these games are sold as novelties. It's more for the act of purchasing than it is for any kind of long-term relationship you're going to have with it.
What about like GTA Chinatown, where it was the DS title?
That works because it's
could transfer
isometric.
onto-
GTA 1, GTA 2, once again,
Yeah.
like that
So maybe
might
you're
work.
not going to get a full GTA title, but maybe you'll get.
But you might
something
get a
that's like
frustrating GTA title.
Oh, I
mean, it's-
definitely think you're going to get a frustrating.
But we're
GTA
seeing,
title.
I mean, are we moving towards a future, Stephen, what do you think about, we saw something like Infinity Blade, which
Right.
was by far the best looking handheld game I've ever seen.
and not
Right.
very fun.
Not very fun, but but they created it as essentially it was and
a
with
tech
all
demo.
due respect to it was a tech demo, right?
Yeah.
But it showed the power of the iPad and
The possibilities.
and the possibilities. Are we moving to a future where companies like Nintendo and Sony don't make these devices anymore? Maybe are we all going to be making phone calls and playing our games on the same type of device? Because the iPad 2 truly, Infinity Blade, I mean, nobody can argue. Infinity Blade looks better than anything on the 3DS, which is not saying much, but frankly, anything better than what they've even shown on the Vita. I mean, Uncharted 3 is the best looking game on the Vita, and Infinity Blade looks just as good.
Personally, I wouldn't. I mean, I think that it is. I think that it within 5 years will be regarded as the primary mobile platform for video games. It would be iOS.
Okay.
I mean, I mean, what I fear, because you guys are all just talking about how the games look, and this takes me back to the good old days at Tech TV, where I mean, obviously,
Were you all leprechauns?
In industries run by too many men, you'll kind of sit there and do this kind of like, let's compare each other's penis by the fidelity of someone's graphics or the new graphic card or something looking like that. And all of that happened during an age of video games where really the look of the game was the sole selling point, and game design really, really was like slow to catch up with that. And I'm terrified. That's what we're looking on these new mobile platforms, where just so you can show your buddy what you got is going to be the sole like kind of purchasing point of it, and that we're going to lose the game design, and we're going to end up with something like ET, and we're going to have a bottoming out in this mobile market.
Well, one would assume that and we can only speculate the direction Apple's going to go in. If they're interested in really taking over this market, the smart thing to do would be to go to these developers and go, look what we can do. Look what our device can do. Help us make games, or make games that are good for our product. We have, I'm just speculating here, we have 40 million iPhones in the hands of people around the world. Make a good game for the iPhone. I mean, Jessica, do you see them maybe reaching out to, there's a regime change, and regardless of what Steve's mission was, things are going to be different at Apple, regardless of which direction they go. This is an untapped market for them. Do you see them maybe getting into bed with some of these companies? Maybe we don't see ports anymore like Duke Nukem 3D. We don't really need that on iOS.
Right.
But maybe they reach out to Gearbox and say, make a Duke Nukem game for our device.
Well, I think so, and I think that that's what I was kind of hinting at with the GTA Chinatown, that these companies are going to start making games specifically for the iOS kind of system and have it be its own independent thing and just kind of borrow the name from the other ones.
But then I wonder if more
just
money
don't know.
isn't to be made in casual games than, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right, but
like
there's
just
so much
something
money
that's
that's why they want to port them over.
Absolutely,
I just
more
don't
money
know
could
if
be
they
made in
wanna
casual
make-
games.
I don't know if this market is so certain that they want to make the capital investment to make an original title for one of these when they already have this well-established retail market that they've been selling through. And I think that, ports, that's going to be a fraction of the cost to try to move it over to that device, and then it becomes pure profit in a fairly short order. I mean, GTA 3 on the iOS, everyone's going to buy it because they get GTA 3, and they're like, oh, that's right, it's a 11-year-old game.
That's not
But I'm
that's not
wondering if all the
straightforward, though.
people
I think
that have
they
now-
made some changes to it, from what I understand. I
Did
mean,
they take out that mission?
I don't know if they did, but I can only assume that they have.
For you, yes,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Well, I'm wondering if all the people now that they have smartphones and they have thus gotten into kind of more mobile gaming that you didn't have before, eventually they're going to hit a level where they're bored with what they're accessing because they've grown as gamers, and so they're going to want to now own the next thing. So maybe they're going to start looking for upgraded iPhone games.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's everything to do with who this audience is. Because, as facetious as I sound like when I'm saying you're doing it because you're not masturbating, I actually mean that because I just think these games are so idle and meaningless for the most part. And it's just to kind of keep yourself occupied that, if that's what their function is, we don't need to see sophisticated development in terms of future games.
Right.
If people really are looking at this as like they've suddenly gotten into gaming, they just don't want to ever play one in front of their TV. I mean, I just think that everyone's trying to get a beat on who these people are and why they're doing it.
Right.
And I think everyone's just kind of wrong. And that's why no one wants to make the big financial, commitment.
Well, I just those people are fluctuating. You've got new ones coming in all the time that are now not scared of the technology that maybe my parents were scared of before,
Yeah.
but they've adopted a smartphone, and so now they're kind of delving into this
Yeah.
realm.
Right.
And so you can't ever tell. And then there's somebody like me who I consider myself a semi-hardcore gamer in the sense that, I'll dedicate a lot of time to sit down and play a console game, but I've dedicated just as much time and energy to Japan Life. And I tell you that if that thing was to get accidentally erased from my iPad, I would lose my absolute
I mean, there's still part of me that thinks that there's a bubble here, and not to say there aren't some games that people can really get into,
Right.
but it's just kind of this gold rush if you see the attitudes coming out of EA and some of these companies, and the fact that Activision has not aggressively moved into this space, given who they are, to me says something. That, EA seems to be kind of like, oh, look, shiny thing, and it goes running off after it, and then
Right.
it has those Battlefield 3 ads, and Activision just seems to be holding back, and you would think that they have the money to spend.
Right.
But they really seem to be so cautious about moving into that area.
Well, I'm very hesitant to give Bobby
let EA
Kotick.
make the mistakes if you can stand back.
Oh, I
and
know.
watch them.
That's what I mean. That's
That's what I do.
with my
I'm very
personal
hesitant to
life.
give Bobby Kotick any credit here, but
No, he
but-
looks like an adult.
Yeah, but and the big thing that I think
adult in the room.
that they're all ignoring too is what we're talking about here. I mean, I have enough problems with my smartphone battery just making phone calls and checking my email all day.
Yeah.
Until we have a device that has a 48-hour battery on it, this won't be a reality. There's no way anybody can deliver the kind of processing power required to play an Infinity Blade would murder my iPhone battery in like a couple hours if I was also making phone calls, and you can't.
Trying to actually keep your life held together.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the other thing. Some people use these smartphones primarily for the bookkeeping, record keeping,
What?
calendar keeping purposes that
They do
they're
that?
supposed to have.
Yeah. Also, for all you kids at home, too, go ahead and if you have the 4S, just ask Siri for something sexual and see what happens.
Should you say
And that is what I'm bringing to the table here today, ladies and
All
gents.
right.
Siri's a genius and knows a lot of hookers, and that's all I'll say about that. But either way, I think Gabe has seen the future in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that Gabe's a psychic.
and he's a pretty smart dude. But right
crystal
now,
balls all over
the
the
hardware
place.
doesn't exist, and right now the
I
companies
just
aren't
hope
on
his
board.
damn
So
future has Half-Life 3 in it, okay?
Am I right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe he's making Half-Life 3.
Damn.
Maybe he's making Half-Life 3 with Activision, and that's why they're both not saying anything. Right
And they're
now.
going to release it solely on the Android.
Yeah.
And Steam, but only delivered through Steam. And something that I recently got back from, I was at New York Comic Con this past weekend. It's no longer San Diego Comic Con turned into what we've all experienced now, this celebrity-driven thing. New York Comic Con has exploded in size as well. And one of the things that, but it's still it's still a Comic Con.
Are there nerds
Really?
there?
There are people there that go beyond nerddom.
Do you
and
have to
move
be
into
on
it.
a list if you want to go to the nearest restaurant?
They don't have restaurant. It's all funnel kiosks, funnel cake kiosks.
Perfect.
And here's the thing.
They eat out of troughs.
Here's how you know. Here's how you know New York Comic Con is still a Comic Con. There's this lady that owns a PR firm, and I forget her name, but she sends out a list of all the parties at these conventions, right? And it's like, Bethesda party at this time, blah, blah, blah. Zachary Levi's got his thing here. They sent out the list for New York Comic Con. There was 4 parties in 3 days. Nice. So it's still a it's still a Comic Con.
You're also in Manhattan, aren't you?
That's kind of my thought, too.
I don't need to go to. I mean, I'm just going. I can find things to do in New York.
You could find a place to drink in Iowa, man. Like there's
Does it make you guys sad when you see these like super swanky video game parties, like release parties that are full of like young actresses and hipsters and stuff like that?
Oh, you like a Rage?
Yeah,
we're all talking about Rage.
Party. Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about.
Like
that made me so sad. I saw the pictures and I was like, well, I wasn't invited.
Dude, they shuttled random actresses in to just.
It was so hard to get drunk there because all those. No, it wasn't. Still free booze, still easy to get drunk. But it definitely people were there to see the Black Keys, not to see Rage, and that's why Pete Hines got up on stage and delivered the keynote address to the crowd, and they were like, who is this nerd in the tucked-in shirt, and what is he talking about right now?
Like, I know the PR people want to kind of make a splash so that they can get attention drawn onto whatever it is they're doing, and whether it's Rage or some other game. But, I mean, for the people that worked on that game and that work at that company, it must be so frustrating and disappointing to spend all this time, money, and effort working on this game, and you go to your own release party, and you can't get in because some ditzy, dumb chick in front of you has been allowed through the door, and she doesn't even know how to talk.
Okay, if this happens,
that sounds like me.
I'm about to say, if this happens to Jessica, what the hell's going to happen? I mean, the two of us.
I mean, we ended up working it out, but I, as a person in this industry, I was offended to walk around and see these people that didn't even give that man the time of day to listen to what he had to say on his own release party, and the fact that their own company supports this just pisses me off.
Burn down the building!
Burn it down!
Burn them down!
I think I've been living in LA long enough that it's
you just
like,
expect it.
It's a weird day when someone doesn't treat me like so,
I just realized I was like wagging my
No, that was
you were
violent.
Disapproving.
Violent. That's what I sound. That's what I sound like when I go on those shows. All right, good for you and good for me.
Sorry.
But it's true, but they were a little confused. Pete, even we talked to him beforehand. He was like, "It's a weird crowd, man. It's a weird crowd." But he did a damn good job. But anyway. That said, New York Comic Con still feels very much like a Comic Con. Not a ton of video game news coming out of it
because
it's still a Comic Con. And frankly, at this point, it is all due respect to the Wizard Worlds and the other ones out there. I feel like this is the Comic Con in the States now. It's fantastic.
Every time I've gone to it, it's been
it's a true comic book convention. But a couple things coming out. Street Fighter Cross Tekken will be released on March 6th. So that was news there. A lot of people were excited about that. A couple new modes in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, the Heroes and Heralds modes. Halo Combat Evolved Connect details announced. If a tree falls in the forest. There's an Analyze mode. You can scan items of interest within the Halo Anniversary campaign to populate the library, which is an archive of everything you've discovered in campaign mode, which could just as easily be a Facebook edition
I'm
to
reading
this
something
game.
right here. I want you to say it out loud because my head is starting
And
to hurt.
I want to be at Adam Sessler's house when he uses his voice to reload his weapon and throw grenades.
Reload!
In
Throw
the
grenade!
game. They have now found a way for us to not move at all when we play video games. Shoot alien with purple back. Take gun that shoots needles. Throw plasma grenade. We've now removed all ability to exercise even a little bit while playing video game, and clearly you have an issue with this.
It's
I didn't exercise.
Has no one considered? Has no one considered that in traditional games there's certain visceral thrills to be found in the simple things like reloading a weapon, throwing a grenade and it sticking to a damn grunt and watching him run off and blow up?
Do you want my pen?
Yeah, do you want to wag it at something?
Yeah, but I'm just going to jab it in my freaking eye, see if I can get it in my brain so I don't have to recrap like this anymore.
Hey, maybe,
oh, my God.
Maybe they'll find you
Also,
like Siri does.
We were talking about this yesterday. Like, why does it have to be Connect anyway? Like, they could just do it through the headphone, and then you wouldn't have to have a Connect. I mean, if that was such a great feature, why?
If you're that stupid, have your mom hit the buttons for you.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can only move through the world.
My favorite part of that is that you can use your voice to switch, and I quote, seamlessly through classic and remastered graphics. Go to classic, back to remastered, back to classic. never going to be engaging or fun for me. So
I
those
mean,
were
I'm the
some things
loneliest
where-
guy in the world, and I don't want to talk to my television.
Television, please go back to classic mode. Thank you. Little weird, but I think the
television.
probably the biggest video game announcement I think there, and you and I had a conversation about this. We know a couple people that work on the Spider-Man franchise.
Yes.
Spider-Man this year was lost amidst a pile of much bigger games that came out in and around its release date. The Amazing Spider-Man video game was announced. It will be based on the 2012 reboot of the franchise.
Making this one of the least surprising announcements I've ever
of
heard.
all time. However, developed by Beanox,
Who did the previous games?
who did the previous games.
pretty good.
And it'll be an open world superhero game, which is also something that they've done in the past. So, and I don't mean this to be mean, Jessica, how is this an announcement exactly?
I don't know.
But people seem to care, and that is what I'm trying to say. They cared enough to announce that they're essentially going to be working with the same team and doing the same type of game, but they didn't really announce this game when it came out. So why are they now suddenly caring about the 2012 game?
I think it's what they do a lot with these franchise games. That they just kind of assume that there's kind of a core base. They see it. Parents kind of know they're safe.
Mm-hmm.
They pick them up. That it's an entirely different sort of marketing model. Why they feel the need to announce it at Comic-Con is probably the timing was right, and it was Comic-Con. I mean, it's just unfortunately just. I mean, I'm most interested in this game because I do wonder about this movie. That I think I personally may have, outside of Batman. Hey, that's one of those segues I should teach you about.
Yeah, no, I got a couple of Batman segues right there in the back pocket. I'm
but
actually taking them out right now.
I
Put them
think
right
that
in front
we
of me. There
may
we
be at the tipping point of people's tolerance for comic book movies because the talent and skill in making these has pretty much dropped off considerably. And I just don't know.
Come on, what about the Green Lantern? Nah. Sorry.
As these games have advanced, and like there's so many other good video games out there, the idea that you can cajole and trick someone into buying a licensed game is really diminished. I'm real, and I just don't think the strength of this movie is.
What about the Thor game?
I'll comment on that. Worst game in the history of games. It's like my eyes were taken to a concentration camp, and I was made to watch a bunch of other games be murdered in front of me. That's what the Thor experience was like for me. It was a terrible game, but I think I'm most interested in if they're basing it on the reboot of the movie in 2012. We've all seen the trailer at this point. If you haven't, there's a lot of first-person wall crawling. It's a pretty unique perspective. Are we going to see Mirror's Edge type elements in this game? Because I think that'd be kind of neat.
Well, are they just aping Sam Raimi and Evil Dead? At the very end when the
everybody that makes Spider-Man from here on out is aping Sam Raimi.
Did you see that in the trailer for the game?
Plus, why are you going to reboot a movie that just came out and was
I'm
fine
tired
how
of the
it
word
was?
reboot. I
agree.
say it at least once a day.
Yeah, it's stupid.
That's because you constantly take your shoes off and put your shoes back on.
Like that.
Also, there
have
are
a
too
PC.
many kids on my lawn. That's another problem I have. Stay off it.
But that was pretty much the big one there. However, the biggest game there by far, most represented, and then as far as people being excited, was Arkham City. I mean, the presence there, DC's booth was. You have a booth with Jim Lee and Jeff Johns, basically there for a couple of days, signing all day. All of their signage was for this game. They knew it was going to be great. They know it is great. Obviously, everybody knows it's read our review now. It's a fantastic game. Arkham City, our game of the week. A couple quotes from our reviewer that I happen to agree with 100%. One, best superhero game, and arguably one of the best games he's ever played. And I've played enough of it now to totally agree with him. The game is, it's phenomenal. And at this point, Skyrim, and as much as I love Bethesda and love Skyrim, it better deliver, or Arkham City is going to be my game of the year. That's what I truly believe. And you've obviously had.
I've had only a minimal amount of time, so I'm going to hold back for someone else to talk about.
Okay.
Have you played it?
I have played it. I've given it about 3 hours of time, and everything about it is great, except that for some reason that I am unable to understand at this point, I do not want to play it anymore.
Really?
Yes. I can't. I don't know why.
What
I've
happened
been
during those
thinking
3
about
hours
this-
in your personal life?
Did
Nothing.
something? Did you and a bat like have just a moment once?
I fell down a hole. Once, and then my parents got murdered in front of me, and I just can't I can't play this game anymore.
Look, I can't say anything bad about the game. Everything about it is exactly what the reviewer said, except for the fact that I'm just not interested in it.
Really?
I just don't want to
That's
play it.
actually
I
kind of
don't know.
interesting, because do you think that maybe he's not interested in it as much as that you're passionate for it because you're a fan of Batman? Like, you're a massive Batman fan, and you yourself said you're not a
Yeah,
comics guy.
I'm not a comic book guy.
Yeah.
So
The
I'm not into
interest for
Batman.
you-
I just don't. I don't really care about Batman outside of like. I just don't really care about Batman, and putting this game in didn't make me go, oh, awesome Batman, because I'm just not that into
Right.
it.
I will happily admit that I love Batman with all of my heart and soul, and but I just there's just something about the game, and I do have my issues with it that Adam and I have talked about, in that there really is no there's no hand holding. They throw you into the middle of Arkham City and they say, "Figure it out, Batman." I take that challenge because I like being Batman. But no, there's just the game mechanics, the combat. I kind of look at it like
is really neat.
It's some of the best combat.
Once you get that rhythm going on it, it's just like I mean, it's like
badass.
it's just like you get into a zen moment, and it's very, very satisfying.
Right, and I know that you've also put a lot of time into it as well. And I think one of the things that it also brings to the table, it is a Batman game, but the Catwoman element. Not only is it engaging and fun to play, but it's very different than Batman.
Saying that 'cause I have boobs.
And
Actually, I have played both, and they're both really, really solid characters to play with. I actually prefer Batman out of the two because, I don't know, it's because he's Batman.
How large is his Catwoman component? And just so everyone knows, like, I had this game for like 4 hours. I had to give it back because we barely got any copies here, and I also didn't get the code that unlocked Catwoman. And so I was sitting there trying to figure out how much game I was actually missing. And like, I mean, I've gotten the sense it's sizable. Usually, I see one of those codes, and
It's sizable enough that they offer you an option to start upgrading her weapons and her outfits. So you actually can use some of your XP to go back in and help.
well, see that's
and upgrading her outfits is so much. I mean, her combat abilities really evolve.
Well, no, but I mean, I think what's really interesting with that is here's one of the first examples of an online pass where it feels pretty essential.
Absolutely, and that's
You know,
I know that.
where it's not some sort of throwaway. Like, here's a level you would have never wanted to play in the first place.
Right.
Here's a pair of underwear for your
And
character.
here's the thing, even though I say personally, like, I liked playing Batman more just because it's a Batman game, Catwoman is really, really fun. Like, it's not like you're just getting some random tacked on character. She's really well fleshed out, and she handles perfectly. And
Fleshed out.
All right, you two.
You too? What? How's that even remotely directed at me? I've said nothing of the sort.
Eating this ribble rat.
It's interesting that you say that because it has become such a well, people find out tomorrow or today now that they've started playing it, but it is a big enough part of the game where GameStop has actually said, we will give you a Catwoman code if you buy the used game.
Oh, wow.
We will give you.
Yeah.
You need.
Where are they getting the codes from? I could have used one last week.
I
They're
feel
probably
like
buying them.
Yeah. They are. You know, whatever they're doing, I mean, look, that's a whole other discussion about whether or not GameStop actually cares about their customers, but they at least recognize the fact that it's enough of a part of the game that they should provide people with the content.
I wonder if they say, "Oh, we'll give you a code if you buy used Batman," but they're actually going to jack up the price to cover their cost of buying.
Yeah,
the
one would
code.
assume.
You know,
I don't think that's been announced yet.
Yeah, I wonder.
Well, you're going to go return a copy today. I'm going to immediately walk in behind you and say, how much for that with the Catwoman code?
And they're going to be like $176 because it was Steve Jobs.
And I'm going to say, I've only got 200. So you can have it all.
When I started the game, one of the things that was most notable is, wow, this game looks like it's filled with content. It sounds like, I mean, how vast is this? It sounds like it's not just in terms of amount of content, but in terms of just sort of the breadth of the narrative and how many enemies and villains and stuff it takes you to.
Well, the narrative, it not only is it the biggest superhero game I've ever played by far as the narrative's concerned, but what it does really well is that, and again, I am a huge fan, but it's found a way to incorporate his entire rogues gallery, but not in a Spider-Man 3 crappy kind of way. Like, we got to have as many villains as possible. They find a way to, and I don't want to give any spoilers out for people that haven't played the game, but you can actually miss a lot of characters in the game if you don't engage in the side missions. Like, there's this genius Mr. Zaz's side missions, the way that you start playing them and how it's incorporated throughout the game. If you don't even know about it yet, it's genius. But, you know, it's just, they found a way to incorporate all these people in a manner that makes sense and it feels really full. And beyond that, I mean, expanding on the narrative, the voice acting, I don't think any of us that have even played the game for a couple hours can argue it's the best voice acting I've ever heard in a game.
Again, everything about it. I love everything about it. I mean, I love every aspect of it. There's nothing about it that I can point to as not being good. I mean, but I just don't want to play it, and I don't even know why. I'm just like, I just don't care.
Curmudgeonly. You're so. I don't know.
It could be.
Bruce Wayne in the Dark Knight Returns. He's older.
Let me touch on the thing that you brought up, Blair. That one of the things
Wilford
that happened.
Brimley getting a game?
He is the game of life. He plays it every day.
Diabetes.
And we'll the game of diabetes.
When I started the game, because I only played maybe 3 or 4 hours as well, and it was a little bit ago. I found that the game, you have a very abrupt beginning, and one that I wish I had just a better sense of why the hell Arkham City exists. Because it's Arkham Asylum's been turned. I think it's the Narrows is what they've taken in Gotham for that. Yeah. And just hold on, and then something very abrupt happens, and boom, you are in that bat costume, and you are in Arkham City, and it's like whoa. And I played a lot of games, but one thing that other games have done this too. I think I was saying this about Deus Ex. It's when they suddenly play 52 pickup with you in an open world game, where it's like, go figure it all out for yourself. And I'm even a fan of, hey, help highlight what is available, what I'm able to do right now. There are those AR missions. And also, I play like an obsessive gamer. I always like to do all the available side missions before I go back to a story mission. It's kind of that way of teasing out the game. And I went off to do one of these AR missions because it offered me something. And the third one of them, where you have to swoop down, I was like, what the hell?
Dude, I got that on the second try.
But I forgot. I now have learned that you can go back up. Yeah. I did not know this. And I spent there wondering, okay, maybe there's an apparatus that I need. Then, there's another side mission involving Bane. You have to find something. I kind of missed the fact that one of these things was in an area that was a story mission.
Yeah.
I then spent 25 minutes trying to get back into a
swooping
building.
Around, yeah.
And it's just those small things. Okay, and then with the Dr. Zaz, where you're having to triangulate some telephone calls, I didn't know I was doing it right. I kept on thinking when it kicked me out that I had done something wrong. And I didn't know you had to do this over time. And those small things took what I was very, very excited to play this game. But then I felt like I was like the game was fighting me, and it wasn't making me understand what I should be doing, what I can do. And in an open world game that can feel so overwhelming, I think that can lead to maybe what Johnson had. I'm now looking forward to going back and just starting all over again, now empowered with the knowledge
knowing everything that you know.
What I'm supposed to be doing.
To be honest, I have not felt that way at all.
Oh, Jessica's smarter than you. Boys have small brains. Girls have big. Wait a minute. That's
fair enough.
I
admit it.
Because we've had numerous discussions
bigger than my
where,
brain.
like Mass Effect, I didn't play. I went back to it later because I went in there and the track blew me away because I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. I could get to these sections. For some reason, I have not had that issue with Batman at all.
Maybe it's because
I fully
you
expected
really dig Batman, though.
I fully expected, had I held on to the game, that within a couple of days, or within another day,
you're going to hit
distant memory.
It's not really a saturation point, but you will hit a point where you turn where you've moved past the curve.
Right, exactly.
And you're like,
exactly.
I am Batman, and I am awesome.
It's something that happens in a lot of open world games, and I do, with all due respect to developers out there, I think there is not sometimes enough consideration of how you start a game. And by giving a sense of some degree of command to the player, you're really going to start to excite them and invest them in the world and entice them to stay there. Right. And that's all I wanted, was that sense of, I can't wait to do everything.
But here I normal, and you can always they give you little quick hints while you're playing. And also, if you
I got nothing to do with that AR thing. I was like, I forgot that you can go back up. Yeah. I'm a fan of gravity, and I didn't know he could defy it.
I think I totally agree with what you're saying, that it's not very Batman-like to be like, what am I supposed to do?
Right. We don't know. Bruce Wayne's early years, they've never really been explored. Who really knows?
I can't find the door that goes to the bell tower.
Let me go back to saying a positive. Having said that, and this is usually a very good sign for a game, I knew I had only played like 3 hours, but there was that part of me that I really wanted to just savor every moment, because once I realized how quickly you're going to start to see other enemies, I was like, I can't wait. What's around every corner? Right. I mean, that's what it sounds like this game is, that you're just not prepared for what comes next.
Give it more time, is all I'm saying. Look, we could talk about this game all day, but I want to get to some of the fan feedback, but I will leave you with this, probably the best quote I've ever heard from anybody in this industry at Comic-Con this weekend in regards to Batman. I was talking to somebody at DC who will not be named, but you're watching, and I love you for saying this. He said, I was like, the reviews are out. Congratulations. Let's all go out and get drunk because X-Play's always looking for an excuse to take people out and drink with them. And I said, congrats across the board, critically acclaimed. And he goes, yeah, though, if Eurogamer would have gave us like a 0.4 more, our total Metacritic would have been as much as Captain America and Thor combined.
Wow.
And that was the greatest comment I've ever heard from somebody say. And this is DC, not the DC, video game, not the branch. Just somebody from DC Comics who's just proud to be a part of the property. But anyway, I thought that was fantastic. And also fantastic. This fan feedback. This is probably one of the best questions I've read from any fan. These are guys obviously don't write into X-Play because we never get questions like this. From Screen Barrier says, do you think that Batman's success comes from having such a dedicated studio like Rocksteady or from being funded by a powerhouse like Warner Brothers Interactive? Do you think that down the line, big Hollywood studios will branch out to make more games? Well, first of all, Screen Barrier, they do make the games. Obviously, we've talked about how crappy some of them can be. It's of my opinion that Rocksteady took this franchise and made it what it is. I think Warner Brothers Interactive was smart enough to walk away and say, you guys clearly know what you're doing and do it. That's just my opinion. I wasn't involved in the development of this game. But this, I think, is a clear case of, they said, you did a hell of a job with Arkham Asylum. Keep doing what you're doing.
I agree because it's not like Warner Brothers' other games are all
fantastic,
super
right?
AAA, yeah.
Exactly.
So.
But I think more than having... It's the polite way of putting this. Oh, screw it. Having a real studio do it, I think, really helps. And it's not something that's put together just to take on licensing deals. Because, look, a lot of the reasons why these licensed games blow is because all the money's been spent on the license. And so you just kind of get a group of people cobbled together that, probably we should be glad of what they're able to actually accomplish within a lot of those games. I think it's also not being directly tied to another form of a property. That is an original story, and it's one that is built to understand video games.
It's not a marketing ploy at this point.
Right.
It's its own independent.
Well, I wonder what the profit differences are between something like the Thor game and something like the Batman game. I mean, because it's probably cheap to make a Thor game, expensive to make a Batman game.
This has to, I think, probably be a very, very big hit, but I think it will be.
Right.
And then they can bring in the ducats.
I mean, I think that a lot of the reasons that they do, movie tie-ins with games is that they can piggyback the movie marketing of those games. Like, you're not going to see Batman Arkham City being marketed in a 7-Eleven, but if Batman, what's the new movie? Is it Rises, right? Dark Knight Rises. If they made a Dark Knight Rises game, you piggyback on every stand-up in any 7-Eleven will also have at least a mention of the game.
Arkham Asylum did come out the year of the Dark Knight, didn't it?
Yeah, but Arkham Asylum was they made it very clear from the beginning. This is our own story. We're doing this ourselves.
And it's a different Batman. I mean, it's
it's a Kevin Conroy, and it's...
One cannot deny that with the remarkable success of the Dark Knight, that anything, Batman, toilet paper probably would have sold a little bit better.
Yeah, but, the Iron
You'll
Man...
never see you wiping.
You have to crouch down in the corner in a shadow while you wipe yourself. And that said, let's talk about
black out.
Where is the poo? Too much, Blair. Another fan feedback, and this is also a great one as well. Renegade 11. This is regarding Catwoman's online pass. Do you see single player games adding multiplayer or cutting off access to single player in order to have an online pass? Is cutting the single player experience to prevent the sale of used games going too far? Obviously, we've talked about this before. Would Rage have ended differently if DLC did not exist? Is Mass Effect benefiting from having this multiplayer experience and this is a single-player campaign enhanced by it? Do we think that Catwoman should have been a part of the game without the online pass?
Moot point. Everyone keeps saying, are they going too far? These are businesses. They are trying to make your money. You are supplicating them every time you buy a game. Obviously, I want to play Batman enough. I'm going to put up with it.
Right.
So, yeah, they win.
As a fan of the game and as a person that likes to play video games, coming from that perspective and not the businessman perspective, I do feel that Catwoman should not have been an online pass and should have just been incorporated into the single-player campaign of the game because she is so important to that game. It's why even tempt people to be denied by it.
Right.
So that's disappointing.
Right.
But from a business perspective, it's genius.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about the Apple thing.
But it's not like Catwoman doesn't come with the game. I mean, it comes free with the game. It just doesn't
come
if you buy it
you see cutscenes and things like that. I mean,
I mean, you don't pay extra for the pass. You get it with the game if you buy it new.
They're forcing people's hands to buy it new.
I really wish that, and I'd love for people in the comments section to write this in. One of you do our investigative journalism for us, please. But I'd love to know if GameStop is going to charge more for those used games with the pass. And
I will find that out.
Yeah, please do.
I will.
Matter of fact, Steve Johnson will write, when we post this episode tomorrow.
Bet you GameStop doesn't answer my question.
I can't imagine they're selling used copies just yet.
And then the last fan question we have for this week, and this is interesting because we kind of touched on this a little bit, and this may be part of the reason we've had different experiences. 360 Guru says, should people who love action-adventure games in general buy Arkham City, even if they're not Batman fans? Even if I wasn't a Batman fan, I would love the hell out of this game. That is my opinion.
I can't tell.
I
love Batman.
fan, and
I can't tell either.
So you're not a huge Batman fan, but you have
I
obviously
enjoy it.
enjoyed this game.
I can't find anything wrong with the game. Nothing. I like every single thing about it.
Wow, that is all right. That right there is a resounding yes.
I mean, it follows. It doesn't seem to follow the Metroid model as much as Arkham Asylum did. Unless, once again.
But, Arkham Asylum was a more confined. Like, it made sense we need the, I got to have the bomb that shoots out of my butt to unlock this corridor. Here, it's like, it is overwhelming. And I definitely agree with you. It's like, oh, my God, this entire world is open to me right now.
But, I mean, look, I think the other thing is, and I think for that reason I would recommend it, that as you've seen action-adventure games in an open-world space, there's about 4 different forms out there. And this one feels just very fresh and different, probably because of how dark and moody and gothic it is. It's a model of game done in a very, very different way than what we've seen the past few years. And I think on that level alone, it's definitely worth playing.
Maybe that's why I like it, because it's gothic.
Maybe so.
I'm having flashbacks to high school.
Also, we're going to put a picture of that up at some point, and you guys will really enjoy that. And then Steve Johnson.
Come on, if I got in that leather vest.
Right? Did you see what this man did at the beginning of this episode for the fans?
That is what we call commitment,
That was this episode. I feel like I've been here so long.
I was in high school. I was young and impressionable.
And then, Steve, I mean, let's remove all the Batman from the equation. Then, as an action-adventure game, you play 3 hours of it. Is it a recommend?
Don't do it, dude.
I'm not saying anything. I can't say. I got to give it a little more time. I can't decide because I respect everyone's opinions that's telling me it's such a great game and everything about it is great. And I think it's a failing on my part, not on the game's part.
Wow, that's how I feel about everything in life. I thought
Such
I was
an Adam
alone in
Sessler
thinking
answer
that
right
way.
there. No, it's fine.
Yeah. Oh, I thought I was the only one who was inherently flawed and brings everything
What can I
upon
tell you?
himself.
Well, that is true.
It's a dark
I'm like
night
a
of the
Catholic
soul
without
of
the
gaming.
belief.
Well, look, thank you guys. I had a great time, sir. I hope that I did you proud.
No, you did me proud, and you know what? I don't feel half as tired on this side of the table.
Yeah,
I
it
gotta
is weird.
say. So you know what?
on this side.
Maybe those final 3 years of living might actually be done with some. I'll be awake enough to do stuff on a Tuesday.
Sounds good.
No, well done, Blair. Well done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you guys, of course, for being here. And I also want to thank Astro Gaming. In case you couldn't tell, our headphones are shit this week. Astro Gaming gave us some good ones, so thank you guys very much for that. Also, Adam will be going down to BlizzCon this week, so you can check out. Your life is not started yet, my friend. Adam will be heading down to BlizzCon. You can check out that coverage on XPlay and also g42.com/BlizzCon. All the BlizzCon coverage this weekend.
Yep.
Make sure you look out for that. And of course, new episodes of Feedback every week. g42.com/feedback. Thank you guys for being here. You're right. I shouldn't wear pants.
Yeah, it's a lot more freeing.
Yeah.
You should.
To Adam Sessler!
To Blair.
To Steven and Jessica. To Frank. To Nicole. To Neil. We act like this is the last episode of Feedback.